Hello, and welcome to the third episode of In Response, the Magic the Gathering debate show. We've got some great topics to debate coming up today, but first, let's check in with the polls from last week to see who won those debates. So the first issue last week was, are the master sets a success? I was arguing that they were. Prof, you were arguing that they were not. You came out on top 59% to 41% with over 5,000 people weighing in. Pretty good win. Topic number 2 was, should there be another unset? I was arguing there should be another unset. Prof, you said there should not. I came out on top 55% to 45%, again with 5,200 people voting. And the final and deciding debate was, should Wizards be in charge of the Commander format? Prof, you said it should stay in the hands of the Rules Committee. I was on the side of Wizards taking control of it. This was an extremely close poll.
It's too close to tell, really. I mean, can we really trust the results?
It was decided by 83 votes out of almost 5,200. It came out 51% in my favor to your 49%. It's hard to get any closer than that.
Does that count? I mean, isn't there like a 100-vote margin of error? Can't we call that a tie for last week?
I demand a recount.
Well, I don't know. It's just that there were 200 votes for Pat Buchanan. I mean, I don't...
Well, I think it's fair to say that the community is divided on that issue.
Okay. But you definitely won last week. I had won the week prior, so I guess we're tied. That's putting some extra emphasis on tonight's debate, and I want to encourage everyone watching to add their voice and add their vote to see who's going to have best 2 out of 3.
So that brings us to our first topic for tonight. It is the Modern Pro Tour, which Wizards has recently canceled. Now, we've heard this story before. They've canceled it, and there was such an uproar, they brought it back, but then they canceled it again. We're going to be arguing whether or not the Modern Pro Tour should exist. Prof, you are saying that it should. You've got 90 seconds, as always, to state your case.
I want to begin by clarifying that the pro in Pro Tour does not stand for professional, but stands for promotional. It is the promotional tour, meaning that its purpose, its intent, is to promote the game of Magic the Gathering as well as the formats of Magic the Gathering. And that striking Modern from the Pro Tour is a serious blow to the continued success of the overall game. Keep in mind, you already pointed out that the first time Wizards of the Coast canceled the Modern Pro Tour, the uproar was so loud, so overwhelming, that they felt compelled, mind you, to bring it back. That alone should speak to the extreme popularity of Modern, but also the extreme popularity of watching the best players in the world play that format. Since the cancellation of the Modern Pro Tour, Modern itself has seen a sharp decline. Where once Star City Games Modern events were spreading like wildfire, some of the most attended and most watched events that there were, they are now greatly diminished for the next year. Why? Because there is no promotion of Modern as a format overall. A format that was so in demand, they needed to create entire sets that were named after it, Modern Masters sets, because so many people wanted to play it that supply could not match demand. Well, that too has dwindled without the Pro Tour.
Okay, Prof, some very good points.
Thank you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what your arguments are against the Modern Pro Tour. Just as I had, Josh, 90 seconds at your ready.
So I think there's really 3 questions we need to ask ourselves. Is a Modern Pro Tour good for the game of Magic? Is it good for the Pro Tour? And is it good for Modern as a format? So, the game of Magic. As you said, the Pro Tour exists as a promotional marketing device for the newest set. The problem is Modern has an enormous card pool. And so when new sets come out, they're just a drop in the bucket. They have minimal effect on the format. And so what happens is very few cards from the new set filter into decks, and we're not really showcasing the new set anymore, are we? That can lead to less sales of the new set. This is not good for the game of Magic. Does Modern Pro Tour help the Pro Tour itself? Large non-rotating formats have a problem where there tends to be very little movement. The same decks stay popular, the same decks stay on top. If you have a Modern Pro Tour year after year after year, you're liable to end up with the same decks at the top tables year after year, and that can be boring to watch. Boring to watch, not what the Pro Tour is going after. Is Modern Pro Tour good for the Modern format? Now, to combat the problem I just talked about, which is redundancy of decks year after year, Wizards has adopted a policy of aggressive bannings, right? Bloodbraid Elf, Birthing Pod, Splinter Twin. Bannings like this are not good for players. You spend all this time trading for cards, building your deck, learning to play it, and then boom, it's gone. And it's not even gone necessarily because it was insanely powerful. It's gone because Wizards wanted to shake up the format and freshen it up for the camera. I don't think that's great for Modern. I don't think it's great for Modern players.
Well, I certainly agree with you about the bannings.
Well, thank you, Prof, and I'm anxious to hear your 45-second response.
Just pushing and promoting the newest set cannot be the only goal of the promotional tour. The game of Magic is vast, and we must focus not only on immediate short-term sales, but also on longevity, on retention. That's one of the reasons Modern was created, so that people had a format that they could still play their old cards in. If you want to sell the new set via Modern, well, first of all, I could name numerous cards from each and every new set that have taken a strong root in Modern. And so that means that cards in the new sets are affecting Modern, but you know what? Why don't you put needed reprints from Modern into the new sets strategically so that they don't dominate and take over, but also so that people have a reason to go out and buy those packs to get those needed reprints. So it looks like the final word is yours, Josh. I look forward to hearing it.
We're acting like the Pro Tour is the only opportunity for Wizards to showcase the Modern format. That's just not true. There's Modern GPs, there's Worlds, there's the World Magic Cup. There's a lot of opportunity to push Modern, into the forefront a few times a year. I think that in addition, Modern is the most healthy when it's not solved, when there's a lot of deck diversity, when a new brew has a chance, and hiring the best players in the world, offering them a bunch of money to solve a format is going to lead to solving that format, which is not good for Modern. I also think that we could debate the reprint policy, but that's not what we're talking about here. We could go round and round about it, but it doesn't matter what we think Wizards should do on that front. We know what they are doing, and that's not reprinting the cards we need. So if that's the case, then the Modern Pro Tour is not something that we need, and it's not something that's good for Modern.
Some very interesting points. I just want to ask you a question out of pure curiosity as we end this debate. Do you feel, Josh, that had the Onslaught fetches not been reprinted in Khans of Tarkir, do you feel that set would have sold as much as it did?
Probably not. I mean, yeah, I think...
question, do you feel that had the Zendikar fetch lands been included in Battle for Zendikar, do you feel that set would have sold dramatically, not just a little, but dramatically more?
That one's tougher because it did sell very, very well because of Expeditions.
It did, but imagine if instead of just exceeding expectations, it double exceeded them.
I mean, we're just making up numbers now, right? Like, yeah. We don't know what would happen. But I will say that Khans was one of the great draft sets of all time.
It was.
So that's not, like, you can't just say, oh, it's the fetches are the only thing. There's a whole bunch of correlating factors that may be added up. So it's hard to dissect that in the way that I think you want to. And I will give you that is a good way to sell sets. Hey, listen, I'm not saying that they shouldn't reprint cards. Yeah, I wish they would too. They're just not.
I completely agree that this shouldn't be about reprints. I do want to bring up that point more towards the idea that Modern can't sell packs. But anyway, we already had our debate on this. People can vote to say who they think won. I really want to urge people, don't vote with how you personally feel on the issue. We want to know which one of us you felt presented the better argument during this debate.
Absolutely.
All right, moving right along from Modern into Standard, our next issue is Standard Rotation. Wizards of the Coast changed the speed at which Standard rotates, and then they changed it again back to the way it was, which left many people saying that the overall public response to a faster rotation was so overwhelmingly negative that it affected Friday Night Magic attendance, and Wizards of the Coast had to do an emergency backtrack. But the issue itself of standard rotation is one of faster versus slower. And so we are going to begin this debate. Josh, you are going to be arguing about what in terms of standard rotation on this issue?
Well, as I am not an expert on standard, I thought this would be a great opportunity to bring in our very first guest on the show and somebody who is an expert on standard. Prof, today I'm going to be stepping aside and you're going to be arguing against Jeff Hoagland.
Thanks, Josh. Pleasure to be here.
All right, well, Jeff Hoagland is our very first guest. Jeff is going to be arguing why he feels standard rotation needs to be a lot faster. Jeff, when you're ready, go ahead and begin.
The most important thing about a faster standard rotation is that it causes the format to change more often. In the world that we're living in today, where we have access to so much information from so much data from so many tournaments, formats get solved faster than they used to when we first had this 2-year standard rotation. What it also does is it allows the format designers to have a little bit more freedom and take more risks with the cards that they design. Because if they go out on a limb and create something powerful, like, say, Aetherworks Marvel, they can know it's only going to exist in the format for 18 months as opposed to 24 months. One of the other things that's interesting about having a shorter standard rotation cycle is that it's better for R&D to be able to predict what is going on in the standard format, because it's easier to predict which combinations of cards are going to be powerful with 6 rather than 8, which can prevent them from having one strategy be dominant that they weren't able to predict. I also like that it creates some consistency having sets rotate every 18 and 15 months as opposed to the current 24, 21, 18, and 15 rotation that we have now, which leaves sets in for varying amounts as opposed to the same predictability for every time.
All right, you still had a few seconds left on the clock there, Jeff.
I feel like I've made my case sufficiently. Let's hear your side, Professor.
So I actually agree with every single thing that you just said. You are 100% correct. And what you just described, as I expected you to, was how to create the apotheosis of the optimal standard environment. But unfortunately, what you are failing to acknowledge is the players of the game itself. Not the pro players, not the competitive players such as yourself, but the everyday other 99% of players. We cannot keep up with standard rotation as it is. Even reverting back to the former standard rotation, which we have done, I feel is insufficient. We need an even slower standard rotation. Why? Because cards are too expensive and we can't keep up. We do not all have the ability to just trade away for what the new set has every couple of months. We want to be able to play with our cards, and I do understand how that makes standard more frustrating, how it makes competitive Magic suboptimal, but the rest of the game benefits from a slower rotation. This is, after all, a collectible card game. People do not just want to walk up to the counter and be given the current cards to sit down and play for a few weeks and then toss that deck in the bin, as it were. In fact, players can't even afford to do this. And so we need more time with our cards to enjoy the format more. But that, of course, is a very different player perspective. So, Jeff, at your convenience, you can begin with your 45-second rebuttal.
Those are good points, Professor, but one of the greatest things about Magic is that it's so many different things to so many different people. There's formats for every different possible person, and it sounds like standard might not quite be what you're looking for. Maybe it's a new frontier you want to explore. By making all of the sets legal for 15 and 18 months, you're not even taking away time in standard duration from half the sets. Only 2 of the sets now are legal for more than that. And you said it could be longer, but it sounds like a non-rotating format would be more ideal for that and the player base that's looking to save a little bit of money and still enjoy Magic.
You still have a few seconds left on the clock there, Jeff.
You can take those extra seconds and add them to your standard legality.
I don't think that going to a new format is a solution to problems with standard. And we know that there are problems with standard, not just in terms of the competitive high echelons of play, but just in terms of Friday night attendance, which is so far in decline that Wizards immediately changed back to this longer rotation. Why? Because all of their data was pointing to the fact that the vast majority of players that were once showing up in droves to play standard, are now disinterested. So by saying just go over to a non-rotating format like Modern or something new and exciting like Frontier, this doesn't help what Standard needs. What Standard needs is for the vast majority of players to be attending, and that means a slower rotation. And looks like I did use those extra few seconds there, so thank you for them, Mr. Hoagland. And I really want to thank you for joining us as our very first and most honored guest here on In Response.
Thanks for having me, Professor.
Well, that was really awesome to watch. I'm glad I could bring on an expert for that particular topic.
Now, if Jeff wins in the voting for that debate, you do realize that doesn't count as a win for you, Josh, because he's the one who actually debated.
But why not? I mean, he's on my team.
It's a team? How is it a team?
I tagged him in. It's called a tag team.
Oh, okay. Well, if that's how you want to play, then I'm going to have to tag in someone really cool for next episode.
Uh-oh. I think I maybe set a bad precedent.
Yes, but let us move along now.
Okay, on to our final topic for tonight. This is the big one everyone's been asking about. It's the Frontier format. It's a new format, if you haven't heard. It starts from N15 and everything after. It's being touted by some as just the solution that Magic the Gathering needs. Others are somewhat skeptical. Prof, you come down on the skeptical side. You've got 90 seconds to make your case. Go ahead.
I want to be very clear at the start of this that if you enjoy playing Frontier, if you like the idea of playing Frontier, if you have any positive feelings or desires towards Frontier, that is awesome. And I'm in no way arguing against your enjoyment of this game. If you're enjoying Magic the Gathering, then you are absolutely 100% playing it correctly. But I do have concerns for Frontier as a successful format due to the mechanics based on the cutoff of M15. This cutoff, for those not in the know, was determined by the fact that singles prior to M15, especially older modern singles, are extremely hard to come by in Japan, where they wanted a format like Modern to be played, but they don't have access to the cards that we have, for example, here in the United States. And thus Frontier was conceived due to the readily available cards from M15 forward. Unfortunately, that does not a great format make, and it does not have the needed depth and complexity that a format like Modern has in the way of cards that hose out of control strategies, in the way of multiple balanced powerful cards in the various colors, in the way that it has perfect mana fixing that will allow and enable 4 and 5 color strategies of simply the best cards to consistently dominate. Frontier is a reaction to the problem of Modern affordability. It is not the solution. But of course, this is a really sensitive issue to a lot of people because Magic the Gathering is a game, and our personal enjoyment is tied very strongly to it. None of us wants to see any part of Magic, even a new format, fail. None of us wants to see people not enjoying Magic, and so I am incredibly eager to hear your arguments in favor of Frontier. Josh, at your ready.
First off, let me just echo what Prof said. The biggest point in favor of the Frontier format is that people are enjoying it. Case closed. Done. If it's fun and you like it, it doesn't really matter what arguments we're making here. But I do think that something like Frontier was or is inevitable. And here's why. Modern came out in August of 2011. At that point, it had 8 years worth of cards and 32 sets. Legacy at that same moment was 17 years old and had 66 sets. Fast forward to now, Modern has grown to 53 sets worth of cards. It's way closer to what Legacy was when Modern started than it is to what Modern was when Modern started. And now we have Standard, which doesn't move. Because of rotation, it's 5, 6, 7 sets, then it's back. Modern card pool slowly growing. That gap is getting bigger and bigger. And so what happens is if you have a format and it has 10 sets in it and one comes out, and you buy the new set, that's 10% of the card pool. You have a good jumping off point. If you have 50 sets and a new set comes out, 2% of the card pool. You can't make it from here to there. We need a bridge. We need a stepping stone that gets us from here to there. And that's really the big point, is that the game has grown a tremendous amount in the last 4 years. People are holding cards from the last 4 years. They can't play them in Modern. They're not powerful enough. A lot of them have rotated out of Standard, or they soon will. And so they're holding these cards, and Frontier gives them some place to play them. You can say what you want about perfect mana, diversity of decks. It doesn't matter. People have these cards. Right now, they can't play them anywhere. Frontier gives them a place to play the cards they have.
Those are definitely some excellent points, Josh.
Thanks, Prof. And I am anxious to hear what your 45-second response is.
I suppose then the question is how much people are going to enjoy this format in terms of how it plays. And that is a question that if we haven't actually played it, we can't actually answer. So I'll pose a different one here in my remaining seconds. What happens in 5 years if Frontier is the natural conclusion to Modern being around too long, too vast, too large of a card pool? Then in 5 years, are we going to have new Frontiers or some other equivalent format that simply creates a extended cutoff? Aren't we just describing the format that Modern replaced, 7-year extended? Was there problems inherent with that format that caused it to be replaced in the first place? I say we solve the problem of card availability in Modern, not just abandon the format entirely. But of course, the last word on this is going to be a positive one. I'm really glad for that. Josh, what are your final words on Frontier?
I think what we may be seeing here is the natural evolution of the cycle of Magic, right? So we may be finding that there's a tipping point, at which point a non-rotating format reaches too many sets and it becomes unwieldy. We saw it with Legacy. We're seeing it with Modern. It's around the same time point. Frontier may hit that point and we may need a new format in 10 years or so. That's not really a huge issue. We don't even know what the world's going to look like in 10 years. Look at 2006 compared to now. I would also say that comparing it to Overextended is not really fair because that format rotated, 7-year Overextended, that format rotated, whereas Frontier will not. And that's really what Magic needs, is a non-rotating format where I can take my cards from Standard and play them and I don't have to worry they're going to fall off the side of a cliff someday. That's really what people want.
I want it too, but what happens in 5-10 years from now with Frontier then?
5 to 10 years is the entire life of Modern up till now.
That's why I bring it up, sir, because...
But I mean, it feels like it's been around for a long time, right?
It feels like it, but it hasn't really. And so in another 5 to 10 years, are we just going to drop... You say we need a non-rotating format, but in another 5 to 10 years, if we drop Frontier for Frontier 2, or whatever it's going to be called, then it is a rotate. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, but what's the big deal if we do that every 7 or 8 years? And I think Frontier, like I said, because they are starting it sort of later, it will last longer before it has to rotate again. It's not that big of a deal if every 9 or 10 years we have to create a new format. Like, what's wrong with that? It's not like the old formats go away. Legacy's still there. Vintage is still there.
Yeah. Legacy and Vintage, of course, have the problem of the reserve list, and that, of course, was another episode, but I want to thank you for all the excellent points you brought to the table, and I hope very much I did the same. Ladies and gentlemen, we need your help. You decide what we are going to debate on the next episode of In Response by leaving a comment with your suggestions. 99% of comments last time were for Frontier. It was very hard to find any comments suggesting anything other than Frontier. Please submit your ideas in the comments below and be sure to vote in the poll to tell us who you think won each of the debates. And speaking of which, I want to really thank our special guest, Jeff Hoagland, for being tagged in for our middle segment. Jeff, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone where to find you?
Yes, you can find me just at Jeff Hoagland everywhere. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I produce content and thoughts all over the place.
Well, thanks again for stopping by, Jeff. Josh, where can people find you?
You can find me at Josh Lee Kwai on Twitter. You can also find my podcast. It's called The Command Zone. You can find that on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, everywhere.
And of course, you can find me at Tolarian East. We are across the street from the mall. Just park in the mall parking lot, walk through the mall so no one knows that you're actually going over to the campus or you'll get ticketed. So don't just walk straight over to campus. Through the mall, downstairs, maybe look in a shop or two, and then you sneak out. Come on over to the campus. You can find me in the sub-basement. Or, of course, on YouTube at Tolarian Community, on Twitter at Tolarian College, or on Twitch, streaming intermittently at Tolarian Community College at Twitch TV. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you at the next In Response.
Don't forget to vote. Prof, it's been fun as always. Anxious for the next one.
No, you'll cut it off when I do that. That's okay. I did the thing. You cut it off there. Well, why were you taking an Okay.
I was just trying to be nice at the end so that they get the idea that we're like...
Okay. But it would be very bad if you left this part in because it's like, it was done. I was like this. I did the thing. Like, I was really cool and slick about it, and we don't want it to look unprofessional.
We don't want people to think we're arguing or anything.
All right. Cool show, man. Cool show.
All right.
That was fun. And this video has been brought to you in part by a sponsorship from Card Kingdom, as well as the Patreon support of viewers like you. So thank you.